We're happy today to have with us Miss Lillie Bradley. Lillie Bradley is a LifeLink volunteer in the state of Georgia. Let's hear from her, and she's going to share her transplant story as a kidney recipient for 22 years.
Thank you for that introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. As you say, my name is Lillie Bradley, transplant for 22 years. And I'd like to thank Mrs. Burrell and the EMET organization asked me to tell my story of hope. My story begins, I moved to Georgia in 1994 from Louisville, Kentucky to Georgia. Couple years later, I said about 1997, my family was coming down to visit, and they noticed something different about me. They noticed something about my complexion. They were saying your complexion does not look the same. And I was telling them that I haven't been feeling like I used to feel. I feel tired. I wanted to take naps more than usual. And I noticed some swelling in my feet and in my hands. And my right foot was swelling. I was trying to drive the car by taking my right foot, put it on gas pedal. Of course, that's not right. That's dangerous to do that. So I made a doctor's appointment to see the doctor, find out what was really going on. I went to the doctor and she did lab work. She took blood pressure and everything. And she looked at me, she said, Miss Bradley, you're going into renal failure. Well, at that time, renal failure didn't cross my mind. What is renal failure? She said, your kidneys are failing. We have to get you on dialysis as soon as possible. At that time, I did not know the quite number that I was on, but from the doctor's office to the hospital, I started dialysis. Once I started dialysis, a couple weeks later, they found a center where I can go. I went 3 days a week, 3.5 hours. As I was going on dialysis, my doctor kept in contact with me and everything. And then she had mentioned, Miss Bradley, how would you like to get on the transplant list? At that time, wasn't familiar about transplant. You hear about transplant, but it really hadn't sunk in what it's about. So while I was on dialysis, I educated myself. Every time a conference come up to Atlanta, I went up to Atlanta. I went to conference here in Macon and explained about, getting a transplant. So I studied what most of I can, and I got all the information from my doctor. But she said, you would be a good candidate. Now, to be a good candidate for a transplant, you cannot miss dialysis. You have to stay compliant with the medicines. You just have to watch what you eat and everything. So I did the very best I can. I was in church one Sunday and I said, Lord, give me a chance to receive a transplant. All right, after church, went home, had dinner, sit down, watching TV. At 9 o'clock, the phone rang. It was from Augusta University. The nurse said, Miss Brad, we have a kidney for you. Can you be in Augusta by 12 o'clock? By midnight. It was 8 in Macon. We on the same time as Augusta. In between time, when you get on that transplant list, you got to have everything in order. You got to have your night clothes, your insurance paper, just everything right when they call you, you got to be ready to go. So when the nurse said that, I dropped the phone. My husband picked up the phone. He took all the information. We got in the car, went to Augusta. When I got there, I understand that I got there before the kidney got there because the kidney was coming from out of state. This was a private donor. They still today like to keep it private. Only thing I remember, they said it was an 18-year-old young girl that donated the kidney, and I was grateful for that. All right, once I got to Augusta, got ready, prepped up. She said, we'll have to do some more lab work, Miss Gray. Did lab work. They said they do an AIDS test on you and everything. And the surgeon said, okay, Miss Gray, are you ready? At that time, I was smiling. I said, yes. Well, I had my surgery. I received my kidney. That day, the doctor said, Miss Gray, you was a perfect match. Everything worked out. The kidney worked out. And there wasn't any blood, any urine, or anything. And I was hungry. He said, I'm going to back up a little bit. As you was on a transplant list, they gave you a pager. It was a little brown pager like this. And you had to carry it everywhere you went with this pager. Of course, once you have your transplant, you got to mail a pager back. So I mailed a pager back after I had received my transplant. Once I got into Augusta, had my surgery, the doctor said, Miss Bradley, what would you like to eat? And I was naming all these things when I was on dialysis that I could not eat. I was naming, okay, can I have sweet tea? Can I have a pie? Can I have chicken? Can I have pork chops? Or anything like that. He said, anything you want to eat, you can have it now, Miss Brad. So they brought me meatloaf. But that was fine because that I haven't had anything till that Sunday afternoon. So I had my meatloaf and I ate real good while I was in Augusta. I stayed in the hospital 4 days. And he said, Miss Bradley, before you leave, I'd like to ask the patients if they could name 2 names of the medicine that you're taking. Well, everybody know about good old prednisone. That was one. Okay, let me see. I looked down at my sheet that was on my tray there. Celsip. That was another medicine that I was taking while I was in the hospital. You take about 7 or 8 pills while you're there in the hospital. He said, well, you know your medicine, so I think you'd be real good in taking your medicine once you leave the hospital. The next day, I got to come home. As the days went by and the years went by, I said, I was blessed to have a transplant. Now I am going to be able to bless someone else. This is why I am a volunteer for Georgia Transplant Foundation. I am a mentor. I'm a volunteer for Donate Life of Georgia. I do health fairs. I spoke, first experience I spoke as memorial service for someone else who passed away. I was asked to do that. I did not know the person, but they asked me to speak on behalf of the family. I go into the schools, and the 2 dialysis centers that I visit, I have lobby day where I go in and set up a table. And when the patients come off of dialysis, they can ask me different questions what I experienced. Because some person really haven't experienced seeing a person that had a transplant. They wonder, what do you look like when you have a transplant? I don't know what idea do they have. Do you feel sad or sicker than you went in or when you came out? Some of them have never experienced that. That's what the social worker told me. So these 2 dialysis centers that I visit once a month, and I sit down and talk to them. And then some of them are very, very interested about receiving a transplant. And then there are some who have in the back of their minds that it's not for them, or you can give it to somebody else. I appreciate you telling me, about transplant. And that's one of the things my compassion is, helping someone else. And those are my main things, is going into that dialysis center. And like I said, I do health fairs. I go to different schools. And that's what I generally do, is being a volunteer to educate others about receiving the transplant. Because there's a myth about signing up to being a donor about transplant. And so this is what I love to do. And I appreciate you. Listen, my short story is more detailed in this. But one thing I did forget, I am from a family of 14. I am the youngest. I have 13 brothers. Diabetes and hypertension runs in my family. So at that time, I could not get a donor from my family. So I was blessed for someone else that I did not know who donated a kidney for me. So I had to put that in and put my family in that they were trying to help, but at that time, some family members are not able to donate, and you have to go outside of your family. I appreciate you listening to my short story. Thank you so much. Or any questions that you may have concerns or ask?
Thank you, Miss Bradley, for sharing your story. It
Mhm.
was very inspiring, and I liked how you went into details about how it was a brown beeper back then. I was curious, do they still use the beeper method now? And did you ever meet your donor? Were my two questions.
Okay, the brown beaver, once you receive your transplant, we had to mail it back. It came from Florida. We had to mail it back to the organization where we got it from. And I had written letters to my donor, but the family wanted to keep anonymous. Some families want you to know, and some families don't want you to know. And this particular family just wanted to keep it private. So I respect that too.
Okay. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Miss Bradley, thank you so much
Yes.
for sharing your story. It was very interesting. And I have a girlfriend that's on dialysis now. And so your
Mhm.
story has enlightened me about things that I think that she should not be eating. And I am
Mhm.
one of those ones that have been given it to. I heard you say about pork chops. And when you are on dialysis, are you supposed to eat pork chops?
No, you're not supposed to eat any kind of thing like that unless it's baked, not fried. Everything has to be like baked or
Hmm.
grilled when you're on dialysis. And most of they like you to eat vegetables at that time. But
Hmm.
really, you have to be very careful what you eat when you're on dialysis. And some everybody is different. But
Yes,
this
ma'am.
is what I was told at that time. You have to watch what you eat because once you meet that psychiatrist, once you're on that list,
Yes, ma'am.
you can walk in that room and he can tell you if you're a good candidate or not. If you
Yes,
don't take your medicine like you should.
yes,
So
ma'am.
there's a whole lot to, when you're on that
Now,
list, there's a whole lot you have to do to get on that list.
yes, ma'am. She's on a list. She's been to Gainesville twice. She's
Mm-hmm.
on
Right.
some list, but you know what? I'm just so fearful that she's not, and I know that she's not doing the things that she should be doing. So I would like to talk further to you at some other time if it's okay with you, and then you can
That's good.
enlighten me so I can help
Okay.
her to
Right.
be a better candidate than she is.
Right. And she should be in contact with her social worker. Social worker will have meals that you can eat for
Mm-hmm.
dialysis patients anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Is she has a relationship where she can go and talk to her social worker.
She also has an attitude problem, you know,
Oh,
and an attitude problem along with, being on the list and not doing the right things. I think
right.
she really needs to talk with someone such as you, Miss Bradley. So thank you
Uh,
so very much
okay.
for all of that information. I learned a lot from your story, and I wish you the
Okay.
best. Miss Bradley, how long have you had your kidney?
Oh, it was 22 years last week. I had in 2001.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. 2000.
Congratulations. You are very, this was very uplifting because 22 years, that means, Miss Bradley, you have for 22 years did the right thing, doing the right thing. Oh, Miss Bradley, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations to you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so
Thank you.
much for sharing your story today.
Thank you.
Well, I have a question, Ms. Bradley. I'd like to
Mm-hmm.
know because a lot of people think that as younger people who have transplants and things like that, do you
Mm-hmm.
remember in what age bracket were you when you received your transplant?
I was in my 50s. I was in my 50s when I received my transplant. And I have a person who I mentor. She received her kidney transplant when she was 70 years old at that time, a couple of years ago. But I received mine in my 50s. and really depends on the person's health, their heart, and all of that. It's they said it's not an age limit, but I think it depends on their health, really your health.
Another important point that you brought out is that you were from a family of 14.
Yes, ma'am.
And everybody, I guess, did you say hypertension and what else? Diabetes run
Diabetes,
in
right.
the family. And we know in the African American community, and I'm sure
Right.
some other minority communities, that's one of the things that affects our giving as far as being organ donors.
Right, right. Mm-hmm.
I have one more thing to ask you about Lobby Day. I don't know if everybody understands what that is, and that's involving the dialysis. If you can tell us a little more about that.
Okay. Lobby Day, I was asked from Georgia Transplant Foundation. I did my training there, and it's where you go into the centers. And I have a table here, Georgia Transplant Foundation, on the tablecloth. And I have these brochures to tell them about transplants, financial aid, the medicines, what all Georgia Transplant offer. Just the same thing as you go to the conference when Georgia Transplant comes to Macon or Atlanta or Augusta or Savannah or different areas. They bring these brochures, and I have these brochures, and I have them on the table, and they come over, and I talk to them. I have a list of the patients who I'm talking to who comes off of dialysis. I work closely with the social workers at this dialysis, and once they come off the having a treatment from dialysis, they'll come over to me and ask questions. And like I said, some of them had never seen a person who received a transplant. I guess they get that negative picture of what we look like when we receive a transplant. Like I told them, I don't know everything, don't try to know everything. But I tell you what I've been through, and I'm going to tell you the best way I can. If I don't know, I'll find somebody who can ask the questions. But these are the things they tell us when we go in our training to have Lobby Day.
All right. Well, thank you so very much and enjoy the rest of your evening.